Here, New Year's Day turned tragedy when a man intentionally drove a pickup truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street. Here's what we know so far. 15 people are dead, killed. That does include the suspect who was killed by police. That suspect has been identified as Shamsud-Din Jabbar. The targeted attack is being investigated as terrorism, and the FBI is leading this investigation, as we've told you. Governor Jeff Landry has declared a state of emergency for Orleans Parish, as has Mayor Latoya Cantrell.
This morning, as we mentioned, we have team coverage as this story continues to develop and unfold today. We have several crews throughout the area, including 2 in the French Quarter. We're going to start things off with Lee McNeil, who is on Bourbon and Canal, and then we'll follow up with Mike McDaniel, who's on Bourbon and Dauphine.
The team coverage does continue with Rachel Handley, who is talking Superdome security. There has been heightened since the attack there ahead of the Sugar Bowl, and so with that, we do want to get straight to Rachel to set us up, Rachel, on what we need to know today as far as safety and security concerns are there at the Dome.
Well, it is definitely something we have been talking about a lot. I mean, kickoff is going to happen 36 hours and less than a mile away from where this attack happened. So it's something we've been pressing law enforcement and city leaders about a lot. They've been telling us there's going to be a lot of added security for the game today, which was postponed from yesterday. Right now, even 8 hours before kickoff, we're already seeing a good amount of police cars with their lights on stationed on this side of the Superdome, at least 3 or 4 just from our vantage point. And yesterday we saw sweeps happening. We kind of started to get an idea of how that security was progressing whenever we saw the University of Georgia's football team leave their hotel around 6 o'clock to come to the Superdome and do a walkthrough. We know that by then the area had been deemed safe for people to come. So sweeps happening all day. The NOPD superintendent told us at that press conference that we have been showing you clips of all morning that those sweeps are looking for suspicious objects, and they're also bringing out bomb-sniffing dogs, which will also be here today. This is what she had to say with a little bit more detail about what those sweeps will entail.
We have put officers out there as a grid, walking down the streets, every street in the French Quarter, looking for suspicious packages, bags, ice chests, you name it. And they have been walking it as a grid. We've been doing the same thing on Poydras and all the accesses into the Superdome. Part of the safety plan is we have bomb dogs out there sweeping the Superdome and all the exterior area, and we're locking that down. That will be locked down through the game tomorrow.
So 7 o'clock right now, we're going to start seeing crowds coming here around 11 o'clock. That's for Tailgate Town, which is an event that the Sugar Bowl is putting on in Champion Square. So at that point, we should get a better idea of how the attack and how them postponing the game could affect attendance today. As we said, kickoff is at 3 o'clock. Doors to the Superdome open at 1 o'clock this afternoon. At the Superdome, Rachel Handley, WWL, Louisiana.
Rachel, thank you so much. And as we mentioned, we continue with team coverage with crews spread all across the area who've been there very early since this morning, just giving us the very latest in this case. One of those being the why. We still don't have a lot of answers surrounding this, but investigators continue to dig into who the suspect was and why this tragedy may have happened.
Right, and it's not our intention to dwell in his past, but those questions are crucial as investigators do work to get to the bottom of what happened here. Our team coverage continues with Mike McDaniel. He's live in the French Quarter at Bourbon and Dumaine with the latest on that front. Mike.
Yeah, and getting the answers to those questions that you were just talking about by delving into his past a little bit hopefully answers the why that we don't know. We don't know the why, but we do know the who. 42-year-old Shamsud-Din Jabbar. Now, of course, the investigation into his involvement here stretches from New Orleans all the way to Houston, which is where authorities believe he was living at the time. Of course, investigators were out at his home in Houston yesterday, searching, doing an investigation. That's stretching now into today, just like the investigation behind me here on Bourbon Street. We have members from Troop G State Police, which is actually the Shreveport area. They're down here helping to secure Bourbon Street and the Fridge Quarter. They're preventing people from going down Bourbon, but compared to what Bourbon was a little bit earlier this morning when we first got here, it's drastically different. The cleaning crews have come through, pretty much taken out all the trash, and it's pretty cleared up at this point. There's just no one being allowed onto Bourbon Street. Here in New Orleans, when it comes to that Airbnb in the St. Roch neighborhood that authorities believe Jabbar was staying in while in New Orleans, that has been blocked off as well, that section or that area around the home. Investigators, of course, will be back out there today. So here's what we do know about this suspect and this act of terrorism. Jabbar was born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, currently living in Houston, involved in real estate at some point. He was a graduate of Georgia State University and served in the U.S. military. Now, according to an Army spokesman, Jabbar was a human resource specialist as well as an information technology specialist. He also served in the U.S. Army Reserve. He spent a year in 2009 in Afghanistan doing a tour there. He held the rank of staff sergeant, and he was highly educated. Even one fellow soldier, Peter Heap, who took an IT class with Jabbar back in 2010, said Jabbar was top of his class.
From day one, you can tell that his knowledge in the IT field was better than everyone else's. I still thought that he was still a somewhat good guy. He was genuine. He was nice. I would not categorize him as being a Muslim extremist at that time when I knew him. Not at all. I think sometime between when I knew him and now, he got radicalized.
Now, since their time as fellow soldiers, Heap and Jabbar maintained contact mainly through social media, and Heap said that Jabbar had made some pro-Islamic posts on Facebook, but nothing radical that would raise any type of alarm for him. Of course, the FBI is now looking into whatever connections Jabbar may have with any type of terrorist organization, if he had any at all. That's part of that why we don't know yet. Of course, we heard from the President Joe Biden last night, saying that in the hours before the attack, Jabbar posted a social media video saying that he was inspired by ISIS and that he was his desire was to kill people, and of course we know that's exactly what happened. And just a note here, of course, we were reporting yesterday that the FBI was looking into some other suspects potentially who may be involved. They were seen near those IEDs, those improvised explosive devices, but those suspects have since been cleared, not believed to be connected to Jabbar. Now investigators still working to determine whether anyone else was involved. Live in the Quarter, Mike McDaniel, WWL Louisiana, guys.
Mike, thank you so much. And we see those crews there already setting up those barriers and standing behind you. So we'll definitely follow up in a bit. And a heads up for anyone who uses public transportation.
Yeah, the RTA, they're making some changes to the service line following the attack. Buses, they're temporarily replacing the streetcar lines downtown. And with that, you've got to expect some delays too from lines 8, 55, and 91. So for updates here, you can check RTA's website, also the La Paz app. Our coverage does continue this morning there at Canal Street and Bourbon, where the center point of the investigation is. Our Leah McNeil is joining us live there with the latest on where things stand.
Well, guys, we still have a very heavy law enforcement presence here at the intersection of Canal and Bourbon, but it stretches well beyond here. There's still quite a few law enforcement officers, state police, NOPD officers, some federal agents, and also military police. I saw a few of them that just recently made their way here on scene and walked towards and into the quarter. So again, still very heavy police presence here on scene. Now some over 24 hours since that man plowed into a crowd of people on Bourbon Street. As we all had mentioned earlier, that we do know that suspect is 42-year-old Shamsud-Din Jabbar. He's a Texas native and an Army veteran. Just after 3 a.m. on New Year's Day, surveillance video does show a white truck that authorities do say they believe Jabbar rented before driving it here. That rental truck turned on Bourbon from Canal, and then it ultimately went around an NOPD unit and hit several people, ultimately killing 14 people, injuring 30 plus others. He did exchange fire with NOPD officers once he made it about 3 blocks onto Bourbon Street. Ultimately, he was killed by those NOPD officers. Now, again, we do have a lot of questions this morning that continue to pop up about those barricades in the streets, those bollards. We do know that Mayor LaToya Cantrell did say that those were under repair due to the Super Bowl. Nonetheless, though, and Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick did say there are some things you just can't account for, like someone going around the blockage by the NOPD unit that they did have in place and just driving around it on the sidewalk. So I did get a chance to speak to some city officials who have been out here. I did speak to Councilman Oliver Thomas, who did say that they will be looking into different ways that they can ensure that the streets are secured, even the sidewalks as well. But he says he does have a concern about making sure that they are ADA compliant, make sure that those bollards don't block access to people who are trying to get in and out of the quarter who have disabilities. So a lot of different things that they are still trying to work through and worry about. They also spoke to Council President Helena Moreno, who says that the FBI has cleared the scene here on Bourbon Street, but their investigation is still very much active and ongoing. They're still asking people to avoid Bourbon Street. Bourbon Street is not open, and at this time there is no word as of yet as to when it will reopen. So we'll continue to bring you all the latest here from the scene, but for now, reporting live at the intersection of Canal and Bourbon, Leah McNeil, WWL, Louisiana.
Leah's second morning there reporting from that very spot, Canal and Bourbon. Leah, we do appreciate your reporting.
Yeah, and as we said earlier, 14 people were killed in this terrorist attack. We've been working to identify all of those lives lost. Whitney Miller has more on what we know so far.
At least 15 people have died in this senseless tragedy. The names of these people are slowly being identified as families are being notified. The first death we confirmed was of 18-year-old Nakaira Cheyenne Dido. She's from Gulfport, Mississippi, and a recent graduate of Harrison Central High School. Her mother told our partners at NOLA.com that she was sweet and loving. She said the teen was visiting New Orleans with her cousin and a friend. Then there is 37-year-old father of two, Reggie Hunter, from Baton Rouge. A cousin of his told our partners he decided on a whim to go to Bourbon Street. He and another cousin were hit by the truck. Hunter died. His cousin is in the hospital with extensive injuries. The third fatality we know about is 27-year-old Tiger Besh, a Lafayette native and former St. Thomas More football star. Besh died at the hospital from his injuries. His athletic director confirmed his death. She says he was in New Orleans for the holidays. Besh played wide receiver, quarterback, punt returner, and defensive back at STM. He went on to play football at Princeton, and he graduated in 2021, and he was working as a trader at a New York brokerage firm.
First catch of the season for Besh.
And then there's 25-year-old Matthew Tenedorio. He's the youngest of three boys and a Pearl River Central grad. For most of Wednesday, his family hadn't heard from him. And then they got the tragic news. And then there's Nicole Perez, a 28-year-old mother from Metairie who died in the attack. Perez had just been promoted to manager at Kimmy's Deli at Lakeway. Her 4-year-old son is in the care of a loved one, and she was remembered as a good mom and wanted to be successful. And finally, we learned about Kareem Bawadi, one of the two Episcopal School of Baton Rouge alumni victims who died as a result of their injuries. A prayer service will be held at the Lewis Family Memorial Chapel on Thursday at 6 p.m.
And we've learned of another victim who has been identified, as you see here on your screen. Hubert Gautreaux, Archbishop Shaw High School, announced his death on social media. We've learned that he was just 21 years old. People around New Orleans and across the country, of course, at this point now just wondering, how can we help? How can we be a part of a solution here with what's going on, and of course support the victims of this tragic attack?
Donating blood is a start there. The Blood Center is hosting an emergency blood drive today to address that critical need for donations after the tragedy. You know, after we told you about the loss, our Meg Ferris was live showing you those empty refrigerators. A line of some 40 people showed up outside the Metairie location to donate yesterday, and if you would like to do so today, all New Orleans area locations open until 7 o'clock, except for the Pelican Athletic Club in Mandeville and the Blood Center corporate office. They both close at 5, and the New Orleans St. Vincent de Paul location on Canal Street, which closes at 6.